All right, so I will get going and kick this off for Dan. So thank you all so much for joining today. My name is Travis Marks. If you haven't met me yet, I'm the director of Generations University, which is the Pension Board's Learning and Education Center. The Pension Boards has partnered with Ernst & Young to create a series of webinars for our members on a variety of topics. Today's topic is guarding against identity theft and fraud. So definitely an important topic for all of us to keep in mind. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you haven't already done so, kindly place yourself on mute. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat, which is located at the bottom. You just press chat, type in your question, and we'll get to it. And we'll be monitoring that throughout the session. We'll also allow time at the end of the session to ask your questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Dan Eck, who is Pension Director and Personal Financial Advisor.
Super. Thanks so much, Travis, and thanks for everyone for joining us today. Title is Guarding Against Identity Theft and Fraud. Those are two different words with their own meanings, but kind of all in the same bucket. We'll define those, but one kind of leads to the other, and one's a bigger deal than the other. And we're going to talk about that, some ways it can happen, and most importantly, some ways that we can guard against both identity theft and fraud. Before we do that, I always like to start by talking about some of the ongoing financial planning resources that are available to all of you in your relationship with PBUCC. That includes the EY Navigate Financial Planning Program, which is available at no cost to you, as you can use as often as you like, anytime you like or have a need, to help you plan for and understand how to improve your financial future. Services include access to the EY Navigate Planner line, which means very specifically, you can pick up the phone, call that dedicated number on screen, and talk to an EY financial planner about your pension board benefits, about any financial planning topic or question or concern, which may just be a simple question or a full retirement plan or a discussion on a debt reduction strategy or insurance or tax questions this time of year, or anything else that may be on your mind. Certainly, you want to talk about your credit score, you think you're a victim of identity theft, you want to understand what that means and what next steps to take. That's a great conversation to have as well. So you now have your own financial planner. This has been in place for quite a while, that you can use anytime you like. If you want to, you can continue to work with the same planner that you get initially and continue that relationship for as long as you need. You can also do a lot of what I just said on your own on the EY Navigate digital website and app. You see the site on screen. It's pbucc.eynavigate.com. It takes about 2 minutes to register on the site, and then you can log in on the computer or on the app. And you can do a full retirement analysis, run some calculators, watch some videos, including webinars similar to this one, anytime you like, day or night, on the website. And if you get stuck or you can get as far as you can go, you can always click a button on the website and be connected Monday through Friday with a financial planner if you'd prefer to do that versus just calling us on the phone. And then from time to time, we do offer monthly workshops and also offer the Power Up sessions here through PBUCC. So there's lots of financial education, we call it group learning, available to you. You can find a lot of that on the website, and you can register for those anytime. For any workshop that I deliver, I always suggest the same thing, which is to develop your own personal action plan as we go through the content. We're going to spend about 30 or 40 minutes together today, depending on how many questions we might have. But I'll tell you, the most important moment of that the session today is when we're done. In about 30, 35 minutes, and we say, thanks, have a great day, and we go back to our daily lives and our normal routine and a bunch of emails waiting for us. And it's at that point you've got to decide what you're going to do with the information you heard today. So I'd encourage you to jot down any action items, any tips, any ideas that you hear, that occur to you, that I suggest that you need to follow up on after today's session is over. That's where the real value comes from. The easiest way to do that is just to write it down as you go. I call that a personal action plan. It can be a piece of paper or the notepad on your phone, and just make sure you capture those as you go. Everybody's list is going to be a little bit different, but I'll suggest some along the way there in those yellow boxes. So let's jump right in. We don't have a lot of time together, so let's talk about identity theft and fraud. We'll do some definitions first, make sure we understand what it is, and and the ways it can happen. Identity theft just means that somebody has stolen or obtained somebody else's information fraudulently. They didn't give it to them, like your social security number, your driver's license number, your credit card number. That's theft. That's a crime in its own. But what we care more about is identity fraud. That means they actually used it for something, right? An account takeover. So they stole your credit card, or they just got the number and they go online and go on a shopping spree. So they've actually taken over your accounts, maybe your bank accounts, and have used that in a fraudulent manner. Or application fraud. If they get a hold of a few identity documents like social security number, driver's license, they can apply for their own credit card. They can change the address on that application, and if it works, they get a credit card mailed to them. They start charging it up. Maybe after a few months, you check your credit report and you find out a little bit too late. So identity fraud is the one that we care more about, but they're both significant, and they can impact us in a lot of ways. Certainly financially, we may be denied credit because that credit card that somebody else took out never got paid off, and our credit score is now in the tank. There may be legal fees if we have to fight it once we do find it. It's going to hurt our credit score. There's emotional issues, anger, anxiety, stress, all those things that we've probably felt if we've experienced this before, sleep issues, physical illness, and it may even impact the relationships with family members or others in the community. If somehow the fraudster did something to impact those that you know, and it looks like you did it, and there's some hurt feelings or some social impact as well. So it's something we try to avoid. We don't want to happen, and there are ways, thankfully, to minimize the potential for identity theft and fraud, and that's a lot of what we'll talk about together here today. Before we do that, let's understand the specific types and do a little more of some definitions. All of these are significant. They're all kind of in the same bucket, but they all have their own spin. So bank fraud just means somebody has probably opened a new account in your name. They got a hold of the necessary identification documents. They may have faked your checks if they got a hold of your checking account number and they created a set of fake checks, or opened an account and have real checks, but in that account name. And now they're spending money that ties back to your account, and they've cleared it out. They may get a hold of your debit or credit card. That's credit card fraud, and they use it online, or they use the physical card. Document fraud means they've stolen those identity documents, and that can lead to any of the things you see below that. They can even take out a mortgage, buy a house, now it's in your name. They live there, maybe they sell the house. They, of course, they don't pay off the mortgage. They can sign up for health care and do that in your name. One that I hadn't even heard of, situations where a criminal may give the police, when they're arrested, your information, including driver's license information, social security number, and say that's who they are. They get released from jail. They're supposed to show up to court. They don't show up. They come after you. So document fraud may ultimately be one of the most significant when you think about what somebody can do with those identified documents. We'll talk more about those as we go as well. Tax fraud is the last one, and there are certainly cases on the news every year around this time of year where people find that they filed their tax return only to find or hear from the IRS that no, your return was already filed. You asked for a refund. We sent the refund to the bank account we provided, and of course that was identity theft, and somebody else did that on your behalf. Unfortunately, the IRS typically takes a first-in approach to tax returns. And I've seen this in cases where people are fighting over who gets to take a child in a custody battle on their tax return. The person that files first usually gets the child credits on their tax return, and the person that filed second, even if they were entitled to it, has to fight it. Well, it's unfortunately no different when we talk about identity theft. If that fraudster files early with your social security number and has just enough information, maybe a W-2 that they got out of the mail to report your income and qualify for a refund and indicate what account that should go to, they may have stolen that refund. And so there's a lot we can do to manage that, but we want to understand what we're watching out for first, because there's lots of ways that those thieves can steal our information, and some of it's, of course, not really under our control. We interact with businesses on a daily basis, and we have to share some private information, including payment information, and we see it on the news many times during the year that company may have been hacked. They have a data breach. So all of their payment information has been stolen, and now it's out there on the dark web, whether we know what that means or not. And it may be stolen, it may be sold, and it may be used by thieves. Good news is you're part of probably 3 million or 50 million credit cards that are in that data breach. Hopefully they decide not to use yours, but it's out there. Internet hacking means somebody's using their computer to steal information off of your computer or off of your phone. Credit card theft, again, simply means they've stolen your credit card or just the number, and there's lots of ways they can get that. Then there's old school ways. They can just go to the mailbox when you're at work and pull mail out of your mailbox and use the information in there. Again, they may have pulled a W-2 or a tax document this time of year, maybe a brand new credit card that you ordered correctly, showed up in the mail, and they got lucky, and that's the day they decided to steal your mail, or they found one of those credit card offers we get in the mail. They decided to respond to it and say, oh, by the way, I've moved, here's my new address. So mail theft is significant. There's some ways to avoid that as well. Maybe the hardest to avoid, because they're so well done sometimes, are the phishing and spam attacks. These are often done through email, and they can get very convincing and very specific. In fact, many companies will test their employees. They'll send out fake phishing emails to see if anybody bites, and then they kind of have a discussion with those employees. But it may be from what looks like a company or a bank or a financial institution you do business with. So it says it's from your bank. It says there's a problem with your account. Please respond with your password so we can reset it. And that seems reasonable enough, so you do it. So always question what they're asking for. More importantly, and we'll cover this a few times today, question the source, and always go to the source directly if you can. So if you get a text alert that looks like it's from your bank, or you get an email that looks like it's from your bank, and they say there's a problem on your account, there's a questionable charge, that may be true. And if it is, it's a concern. Go to your bank's website in the way that you normally would. Type in the address directly. Don't click on the link that's inside that email or in the text. Wi-Fi hacking means you're at the coffee shop, you're in a hotel. We've seen commercials on this where you join an unsecured network, and it's unsecured for a reason. It means it's a public network, and people, if they know what they're doing, can very easily hack in and get direct access to see what you're doing on your computer. If you log into a bank's website on your computer, they can see that. They can see the password that you typed in. And then ATM skimming is the other one to watch for. So some of these are online, some of these are very electronic. This one is very physical. Most commonly, it's done at a gas station. Somebody pulls up to a gas station that's out of sight from the store, and they install a skimmer on that credit card reader. It's a device that fits right on top. You often don't notice it unless you look really closely. When you stick your card in there and pull it back out, it reads the credit card information. They've likely installed a camera out of view as well that's reading as you type in your PIN for that credit card. And now they have all the information they need to use your credit card online to buy gift cards that can't be traced, and away they go. If you put your credit card in any credit card reader, whether it's a gas pump or at the store, it feels like it sticks, it's hard to go in. Be very cautious and look carefully, or move to another station, recognizing that could be because of the skimmer that was attached right on top. That's the most telltale sign that may have occurred. So we've got some definitions kind of out of the way. We understand how thieves can steal our information. Good news is there are things we can do. So this is sort of the answer. What are some of the ways that we can protect our information and avoid all of those methods that we just learned about? And we'll take these one at a time as we go through. Lots of ways to protect our information. We talked about mail theft. That's as old school as you get. Somebody just driving down the street, no cars in the driveway, we're going to go to the mailbox, see what's in there. You can install a locked mailbox. It has the mail slot, the mailman can put the mail in, but only you can get it out. It's a simple key, and that's enough to deter that theft. We're going to go to the easy ones that are wide open that can just reach in and grab it. If you do get mail that's junk mail but has personal information, you get credit card offers in the mail all the time. If you look at those, there's a lot of generic information on there. They have the fee disclosure, they have the advertisement, and then they have that one document that says, hey, Dan Eck, you're qualified for a credit card. Here's your special code. Go to this website and type it in. That's what I pull out, and I make sure I shred that document every time. I have a shredder at home. You may have it at the office. There are shredding events and places you can take documents if you trust those, and they shred them right in front of you, sometimes for a fee. If you have a cell phone and who doesn't, make sure you use the security features. If you can lock it and you have to type in a password or use Face ID, most phones now require that, but make sure you use those. Simple as that. Nobody can get into your phone. Sometimes even the company that made the cell phone can't get into your phone as long as you're using those. They're that good. And then this is an old school one, but it's still one that is worth saying because a lot of people do it. You don't need to carry your social security card, your birth certificate, or passport with you really anytime, anywhere. If you need one of those documents, as I always say, you know before you leave the house that you need that document. You might need your social security card and your birth certificate because you're going to apply for a passport or for a driver's license if they've moved to that new secure driver's license, as we did in Ohio, and we needed all of those documents kind of at one time. If you're going to go do one of those things, you know in advance that's why you're leaving the house and you take those with you. Otherwise, those are documents you do not need in your daily lives, and it's significant if they get lost or stolen. So leave those locked up at home and in a safe place. Protect your credit cards and your debit cards as much as you can. First, only carry the ones that you need. Second, make sure you always keep a list at home of everything that's in your wallet or purse. If it gets lost or stolen, and you try to remember at that point everything you had in there, chances are you will forget something. And if it was one of those credit cards, it's now out there being used, and you're going to forget to check on it and see if there's any fraud so you can cancel that card or even cancel it right away. So keep a list. Make sure you check it every so often. If you add or subtract things, if you lose it, that's the first list you go to. Add the phone numbers from the back of the cards to that list and start making your calls and freezing or closing your cards. Make sure you handle your pen with care. Don't write your pen down because people do it. They put the pen right there on the card or somewhere else in their wallet. And make sure you change it if it's reset for you by the bank. A relative of mine 15 years ago had their purse stolen at a Target store, and she realized it that night and she started making calls, but by then it was too late. They had used the debit card, and they actually used the debit card with the PIN, and the bank would not cover the $800 charge because they said it was used with the PIN. There's no way they could do that unless they had the PIN. So either you gave them the PIN, it was really you, or somehow the PIN was easy to find. Turns out she had replaced her debit card, and the bank reset the PIN on the new card to her birthday and the month and the year and said, when you get home, reset it. Hadn't reset it yet. It had only been a few days. And the thieves guessed the PIN and they used the card, and the charge was not reimbursed on the debit card. We'll talk about the rules with debit cards and credit cards and how they differ here in just one minute. And then the last thing here is just protect the card numbers. When you shop online, maybe it's a setting that I selected on my browsers, but now when I go to that credit card section when I'm going to buy something on a shopping site, it comes up with a list of all the credit cards I've used in the past. The numbers are screened out, but it says you want to use one of these, we store the information. I make sure if I type in a new one, I check the box I don't want them to store it, and I try to remove those. But it's just because it feels like that's a bit too easy for that information to be out there. So don't store your cards. Type them in every time so they're not out there. If that site gets hacked, now your information isn't on that site if you don't store them. Let's continue with that conversation, looking both online and more broadly on some of the techniques that are used. Online, make sure you have strong password. That's probably the first thing we've ever heard on identity theft, and it's still true today. But the procedures have gotten better if you take advantage of them. Using two-step authentication when it's available, sometimes it's required, is extremely valuable. You type in your password, but then they say, all right, step 2, we're going to send a code to your phone or to your email. So if you think about what the fraudster now has to go through, it's not enough just to get your password and use that from wherever they're sitting, which may be thousands of miles away. If they don't have access to your phone, they don't have access also to your email, they're not going to get through that second layer of identification, and they won't get in. Oftentimes sites will ask if you want to use that 2-layer authentication. I always say yes. My phone's always with me. They just send me a text with a code, and I type it in when I'm in. And I've essentially solved that issue of my password alone getting stolen. As you do online shopping, make sure you're shopping on secure sites. If you don't know it already, when you look at the website on the browser, the HTTP at the beginning of the website, if it has an S on the end, that S stands for secure, and that indicates an extra layer of protection for that website. And that's a sign that you have some protection and some security while shopping on that site versus not having an S in the URL. Beyond that, we can talk about mail. Register on the do not call and the do not mail list. Each of these is unique and a little bit different, so jot all of these down as action items. The do not call list or the website allows you to take your phone number off the phone call list for those robocalls. It won't eliminate all of them, but it does a great job of reducing that number. There's also apps that will try to identify those calls as they come in and immediately send those to voicemail or just disconnect them. The DMA choice is for mail and email. So if you want to get your name off some direct mail and email campaigns, dmachoice.org is the website for that. And opt-out pre-screen is specific to what comes out of the 3 credit reporting agencies. So a lot of financial institutions like credit card companies will go to Experian or Equifax and say, give me the list, the name and address of anyone with a credit score over 720. We're going to mail them a pre-approved credit card offer. And that's perfectly legal. That's part of what those companies do, and they sell those lists. You can remove yourself from those lists through the optoutprescreen.com website. A couple other points. If you do get a spam email or what looks like it could be, or a text feels like it could be true, again, go to the original site. Don't click on the link. But also, if you're not sure, look for grammar. It's amazing to me how many of these spam emails don't hire somebody that's an English major that can check the grammar and the spelling and whether there are complete sentences, because I'm fairly certain the large financial institutions know enough to write complete sentences in good English. And the scam emails often have some pretty obvious errors if you pay attention to those. I'll admit, I like watching Dr. Phil. I like watching the news, and often you'll hear stories about scams and people being subject to fraud. And a lot of times it's they were called and said you owe some debt and you need to pay this off immediately, and then they're asked to go out and buy gift cards and read those numbers over the phone. If you learn nothing else, you probably knew it already. No official payment source, credit card company, taxing authority takes gift cards as an official payment source. So make sure if they ask for gift cards, you recognize it as a clear red flag that that's not legit. It's a fraud scheme, and we hang up on that. A few other ways to detect identity theft and fraud. Some ways to monitor our accounts specific to bank accounts. Most bank accounts, credit cards, debit cards, the checking and savings accounts allow you to set up monitoring actions. That may be a text alert, it may be an email, it may be both. It may be even a phone call over a certain dollar amount. So I have mine set up that any charge on my debit card over a certain dollar amount, or if it's done by phone or if it's done online, I immediately get a text alert. And if I do order something over the phone, before I even hang up, I hear my phone ding and I know that text alert came in that says the charge went through. That gives you an indication that your card number was used. You can look at the vendor, the dollar amount, and immediately probably recognize if that's something you did. Maybe it's an automated payment that you set up and it's okay, or you don't recognize it. You go to your bank website and explore it further. It happened to me 3 months ago. I have a lot of charges that go through Apple. A lot of the apps that you buy stuff on are done through Apple. I pay for storage every month through Apple, so I have a lot of Apple charges that go through. I had one pop up 3 months ago for $53.11 from apple.com. It's not an amount I recognize. I kind of stopped and thought about it for a minute. Maybe it's something I did. And then within a minute, another one popped up for $53.11, and then a third. As I'm logging onto my website, my bank called me and said, looks like something's going on. We had that card closed within about 10 minutes. And they got 4 charges pushed through before we were able to get that card closed. But I knew it because the alerts were set up and I had updated my phone number with the bank so that they were able to call me immediately and ask about that charge. So make sure your information is up to date, set up any alerts you're comfortable receiving so you know immediately when there's activity on any or all of those accounts. In terms of your credit reports, that's one of your best sources of information to see anything that's tied back to your name and your social security number. A fraudster may be able to open a credit card in your name and change the address and get the card and even use it, but it's still tied to you and your name. That's the reason we care about it, because it ultimately comes back to my name, my social security number, and that's still going to filter back to my credit report. So make sure you find a consistent way to view everything that flows through your credit report, looking for names and addresses that don't match yours, credit card names, companies, numbers that don't match yours, large balances when you don't have anything, and then investigate further as soon as you see that. The website annualcreditreport.com, which you see on screen, allows you once a year to get a free copy of your credit report from all three agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So at a minimum, every 4 months, go get one of those three and look at it. That's the official credit report straight from the agency. But there are plenty of sources out there, including your bank and credit card websites and sites like Credit Sesame and Credit Karma and other commercial sites whose main function is to, number one, sell ads and put them on the site, but also give you access at no cost to your credit score and your credit report. And they pay for the site with all those ads. So if you're willing to ignore the ads, you can have constant access to a version of your credit report and your credit score and monitor that information as often as you like, looking for those things that are not yours and that you don't recognize. Let's talk a little bit about the liability rules, specifically around debit and credit cards. They are different. For credit cards, we have significant liability as long as we recognize there's been theft and fraud, and we notify the credit card company in a reasonable amount of time. Or specifically, they want to know as quickly as possible, but within 30 days. As long as you do that as quick as you know about the fraud and within 30 days, you typically have a $50 maximum liability. Most credit cards will waive even that $50. They're looking for suspicious activity. You need to as well. If you lose your card, most cards allow you to go online and lock the card temporarily until you find it. If you can't, then you need to call them and lock it or shut the card down if you think it's been stolen. Look at your charges online. Look at your statements every month if they come in the mail. Change your password from time to time. For your debit card through your bank, it's even more important that you report that quickly because there's less protection on your debit card. If you report it lost or stolen within 2 business days, any fraudulent charges, you're limited to $50 in liability. Again, they often waive that. If you don't report it within 2 days, you're liable for up to $500, sometimes more if a PIN was used. If you don't report it within 60 days, it's unlimited no matter what they used it for. You've got to know what cards you have, whether they're in your possession, and whether they've been used. We mentioned the credit reporting agencies. Here's all three and their direct phone numbers. Certainly, if you find identity fraud and theft on one of those reports, it's probably on all three. You need to reach out directly and place a fraud alert on your credit reports. Contest the item in writing as quickly as you can, as well as reaching out to the bank that loan, that credit card may be with. You can also reach out to them and freeze your credit reports, which means nobody can open credit in your name without contacting you directly at the information you provided. It can be an annoying system because if you decide to apply for a credit card or an auto loan or a mortgage, you've got to remember to go and unfreeze that credit report so that that legitimate lender can make an inquiry and approve a loan on your behalf on your account by going to that credit reporting agency. That's an easy step as long as you remember to do it. In the meantime, you at least eliminate one possibility for identity thieves, which is opening accounts, loans, and other transactions in your name because that account truly is fraudulent. If you have identity theft and fraud, it's also important to file a police report and include the information with them as well. And make sure you get a copy of that report and keep it in the file. More specifically, if you go to the website identitytheft.gov, and for anybody that has had a specific incident, this may be or should be one of your first steps. It takes you through a step-by-step process based on the specific identity theft type that you had, whether it was a credit card stolen, a loan taken out in your name, or other. It asks you in the Get Started button what happened to you. It asks very specific questions about the situation, how much, where it happened, how long ago, and it allows you to report the incident but also gives you the tools, including letters and other information and websites, to address it and try to combat and fix the identity theft and the consequences of that action. So identitytheft.gov, if you've not been there, again, you can kind of click through and see what it does for you, but it really is meant for somebody that has had an actual identity theft or fraud or a stolen identity. It takes them through the real-time process of getting that reported, fixed, and giving them the resources that you need. Well, about 30 minutes in, as I said, the most important moment of this session or any session occurs when we're done, which will be a few minutes from now. And I encourage you to consider what actions you'll take, what tips you got from this session that you can put in place immediately. A lot of what we talked about today are things you can do directly on your phone, through an app, in just a few minutes on the web. And maybe by the end of this evening, by the end of this week, or this weekend. We list a few of those here, pick 3 or 4 that you like, and do the easiest one first. Start that momentum and continue down your list. Buy a shredder tonight just to say you've done something. Call one of the credit reporting agencies, freeze your credit report, or just at least look at that credit report and make sure everything looks like it's what you own and those accounts are all yours, and then continue down that list. Remind you of the UI Navigate resources and a few next steps. First of all, we'd love to see what you think about this workshop. So if you text workshop PBUCC, we've abbreviated workshop there, to the number on screen, 609-644-9622. So send that term to that text number. You'll get 2 things back. You'll get a workshop evaluation link. Click on that and answer a few questions. Tell us what you thought of today's Power Up Your Finances session. You'll also get a direct link to the EY Navigate digital website. You can go in and log in if you've already been there. You can register if you haven't already. Again, it takes just a couple of minutes. And then you can start to explore the calculators and videos and tools and articles and goal setting resources on EY Navigate, or go directly to the Work with a Planner section and request an appointment with one of the EY financial planners. They'll give you a call at the scheduled time, and you can start your financial planning journey with them. Talk about identity theft, retirement, or any other questions or concerns that you might have. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I'm going to check the chat function. If you do have any questions, that's the best place to put those. You don't see any yet, but you're welcome to add those in. I'll pause for a few minutes. And you're also welcome to go off mute at this point and ask any questions directly.
Does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you do.
This is one of those workshops I often get some good stories, even if a Jen Ayers goes, a friend of mine. But hearing what others have gone through or how they dealt with it is often very valuable as well for others to hear. Again, that policeman was new to me. The criminals were like, giving my name, it makes perfect sense. And then they just all show up for court. So you learn something every day in this world. It's a significant issue, and there's just a lot of simple steps that we can take to try to minimize the impact that possibly.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. I thought that a couple of things were interesting. One you mentioned, I had to laugh a little bit. You said that the company that's committing the fraud sends an email to their employees. So
yes.
I was thinking, just trying to visualize this whole thing, company by email to fraud.
Yeah.
But I had some fraud happen to me as well. Luckily, I got it cleaned up just as I was checking credit card statements and stuff. Someone had charged a bunch of flowers. Actually, I found out on Valentine's Day when I first met right after I started dating my wife, and got that cleaned up. That was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
But
looks
like we have one hand raised here.
Okay, very good.
Hi, really appreciate this information. I do have a question about if your monitoring service says that your information was found on the dark web, should you be immediately concerned about that, or what should you do?
It's funny, those notices seem to be so frequent. It's almost like white noise now. You almost think, well, they always say that, but I don't think they're lying. I think that means that it was out there. I think if it's specific to one company, I'll tell you the easiest action step. So if you log on to a website, say your bank's website, and they say, this is a very common password, or your password was found on the dark web or somewhere else. The easiest and most obvious next step is to change that password, because that's what that means. Your username and password, perhaps specific to that site, was found somewhere. If you change the password, that information is now no longer valid or useful. It's something we should do from time to time anyway. Of course, it's hard to manage all of those passwords. Right or wrong, I can tell you I have an Excel spreadsheet and I have it password protected, and I have my passwords in there because who can remember them all? But that allows me to create some different ones, some more advanced ones that are hard to remember, but also hard to guess, and unique to each site. And if I need to find them, I can, and I try to secure that document. So to answer your question, yes, it's a concern. I find a little comfort in the fact that it's probably one of 50 million pieces of information that are on the dark web, so hopefully they don't steal mine or use it. But the easiest answer is to change your password if you know what site they're referring to. That's a good question, and it's very common these days.
So what if it's your social security number that's found on the dark web? Then what do you do?
Obviously, that's not something you can change or get reissued, at least not easily. That, to me, that means I've got to step up my monitoring, mainly things like the credit report. And again, you can get a copy of the report every 4 months from one of the 3 agencies on that website. That's not nearly often enough. I use Credit Karma. It's a commercial site, so I'm not endorsing it, but it's a free website and app that allows you, when you register and you provide a little bit of information so they know who you are, you have constant access to your credit score and your credit report. They can send you alerts if something was added or changed. It has ads on it. It says, hey, I think you qualify for a lower rate interest on your mortgage. Click here. You don't have to click on any of the ads, but you can see your credit report as often as you care to look at it. And if I know my social security number has been compromised, it may have been found out there, then that's what I want to look at on a regular basis, because that means somebody's probably going to use that to open an account, open a credit card, have it mailed somewhere, and start using it. And very quickly, almost immediately, that's going to show up on my credit report. And so I want to look through that and make sure all of the accounts are accounts that I have. I've never had a Discover card, and suddenly there's a Discover card on my credit report. That's a red flag, and I'm going to get that addressed immediately.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really great question. Does anyone have any further questions?
Travis, I'll add one tip, only because I just went through this. I've been pretty lucky from an identity theft. I do a lot of things online. Almost all of my bills are paid auto pay. Twice in a row, 2 months in a row, late last year, my debit card got used fraudulently. The Apple charges the first time, and then the next month, they immediately shut down the debit card, issued a new one with a new number, and you can imagine the difficulty that is. And then a month later, somebody charged a hotel in California to the new one. So it hadn't even been in existence a month, and it happened again. I have at least 20 things that come out of my account automatically every month off my debit card number, bills that I have to pay. That's how I prefer to do it. A lot of people do it through the mail. There's risks with that as well. So you accept your risks. But the problem is if you get hacked and they close down your debit card, which is what the bank will do, and they'll give you a new card with a new number. None of those auto debits, auto payments that all of us have set up for various things are going to go through the next month. Fortunately, I keep a list on my computer of all of those automated debits. So I know everything that comes out once a month on a debit card or on a credit card. And so I was fortunate when I got the new debit card, I went straight to that list. I logged onto each of the sites. I updated the payment information. It was kind of a hassle, a couple of hours, but literally it was a couple of hours. And I had all of those updated again, and I was back in business, made whole. And all of those charges went through just fine. Nothing bounced. No services got shut off because all my bills got paid. But that is the risk in this very digital economy where we pay a lot of things online. A lot of our Netflix is done once a month automatically. It comes right out of our bank account, right off the credit card. If that credit card changes, that's not going to get paid next month. And we have to be aware of that and ready for that to happen and keep lists so we know what's being charged against it. Plus, it's a good exercise to realize just how many monthly subscriptions you have, and maybe you don't need them all. So now we're talking cash flow, and it's a nice exercise to revisit that as well. So kind of all things together. Any other questions?
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, I guess we can wrap up today's session. Ben, thank you so much for your time and this great information. And Steve, I know we're recording this on our end, so when we figure out that recording, we will send that back to participants here and others to be able to listen to that. So if you have any questions, just reach out to Dan and his team about any kind of financial planning item, or visit the EMY website, or reach out to us in member services if you have other questions about your accounts and whatnot. And there's the information right there. So again, thank you again, everyone, for your time, and hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much, Travis. Appreciate it.
Take care.